What is going on, everybody? As you can tell from the opening video, it is a dreary wet day here in North Carolina. As you can tell, I am on vacation. Have been on vacation, just got back from a camping hunting trip off of the Roanoke River here in North Carolina. It's a trip that we've been doing with my buddies here for, I've been going with them. This was our 12th year that I've been going with them. They've actually been going before I have. But I was sitting here in this rainy, miserable weather, made me want to kind of make a video to address some misconceptions and actually kind of answer some questions people have about hunting deer in the rain. So I figured I would tell you a story about one of the biggest deer I've ever seen on the hoof here in North Carolina, and it involved a day just like today. Right now we have the remnants of Hurricane Eta that storm has come in, circled, zigzagged every which way it can't make up its mind where it wants to go. It finally hit Florida again. It's going back up off the coast, off the east coast, and the remnants of that are what is causing all this rain. It's actually very breezy here. It's not bad, but it's kind of breezy. But a lot of people have asked, can you deer hunt in the rain? Obviously, if you have a box blind or something like that you can set up in, especially on the edge of a field, that answer is yes. But I thought I would tell you a funny story that happened to me years ago on a day just like today. I had planned to go hunting, and obviously with rain the way that it does, it takes a toll on you. It makes you sleepy. So I had come home, had planned to hunt, loaded my stuff in the truck, ready to go, and the bottom fell out. So I laid on the couch. What did I do? I knocked out. I went to sleep. I remember being awakened by my wife, who come in. She said, "I thought you were going hunting." I said, "I was, but it started pouring out rain." She said, "Well, the rain stopped." So I looked out the window. Sure enough, it had stopped. I jumped in the truck, took off. The spot that I was hunting was only less than 5 minutes away from the house. It's a plowed up sweet potato field. There's nowhere to pull off the road right there, so obviously, I parked right beside the road, jumped out of the truck, grabbed my gear, took off. Hung a couple of scent bombs up with some doe and heat urine. It was November, and it was just like today, far as being overcast and everything. So I went over there, hung 2 or 3 scent bombs up with the doe and heat urine, climbed into the stand, got settled. The bottom fell out within 20 or 30 minutes of me sitting there, and it was getting closer to dark. And I sat there to the point, I remember I had on camo coveralls. They were not waterproof, and it was just like hunting in a washing machine. They became soaked to the point that I remember the water soaking through and running down my back and soaking, just drenching my underwear. And it got to the point that I just couldn't take it anymore. Obviously, sitting there miserable in wet underwear is not a great thing, and it was all I could do. I don't even remember how long I sat there, but I just couldn't take it anymore. I climbed down, left the scent bombs in the tree, and headed back to the truck. I got probably 80 yards or so from the deer stand and stopped, and had this feeling that said, "Turn around." And I did. When I turned around and looked, there was a buck walking out about 20 yards to the left of my stand, had his head down, and he was feeding out into the field. And he goes out about 20 yards from the edge of the woods, lifts his head, and all I see is white glowing. Again, it's getting closer to dark. And I raised the gun, found him in the scope, put it right behind his shoulder, pulled the trigger, and he turned around, hightailed it back into the woods. And I mean, it was pouring and raining. I could not even find, other than some tracks going back where he was running back to the woods and kicking up dirt and everything. Those even filled in within a minute, just flooded. I never found that deer. And that's one of the downfalls to hunting in the rain, is you tend to lose sign very quickly if it's pouring down. But deer move in the rain. And I'll go into a little bit of detail about how rain affects them, when it doesn't affect them, when it can affect them. But you can't kill a deer sitting on the couch. You've heard that said probably your entire hunting career, hunting life, is you can't kill them if you're sitting on the couch, and that still proves true. The question is, how comfortable can you get? So obviously, if I had a box blind to sit in where I could stay dry, sitting on the edge of a field like that late afternoon, that would have been the perfect scenario. I would have had a perfect rest, probably would have made a perfect shot on that deer. Again, he would have come out at 20 yards from me. That would have been a chip shot for anybody. But I didn't have that, so I went with what I had. And had I toughened it out for another minute or two, I would have had that deer at 20 yards instead of 100. Shooting free-handed, which again I still felt like it was a good shot, but obviously I never found the deer, and that was probably the biggest deer I've ever seen, if not probably the second biggest deer I've ever seen in North Carolina on the hoof. Never saw him again. He never showed up. This was honestly long before the days of quality deer cams, and even back then they were expensive, and it was just something I didn't have access to. But I hunted a lot. There were actually dog clubs that hunted in the area as well. Nobody ever saw that deer again, so I know he was dead, and I felt sick about it. We went back looking the next morning, tried to give him time, and we walked the block, which is not a huge block, but we walked it inside and out and never found him. But I wish that I was able to be there a little bit more comfortable. So think about things like that in advance of the season. If you're crafty at all, if you're handy at all, build you a little shelter to get you out of the weather. That can make or break you on a day like this. Now, to address the question, how does the rain affect the deer? Most rain does not affect deer. Deer don't have a box blind to get into to get away from the weather. A little light rain, kind of the way it's doing right now, it's not a heavy downpour now, it's just a miserable rain right now for us. That is not going to affect deer. Matter of fact, a deer is probably not going to lay in a thicket and just lay there and get drenched. They would prefer to be up, moving, walking, particularly during the rut. A buck's going to still, bump those and chase those and things like that. But they don't want to lay there and be miserable no more than we want to lay there and be miserable. You can deal with the elements a lot better when you're up moving around. So a lot of times the deer are going to do that too. So if you got a place that you can, if you don't have a blind that you can get into and stay dry, consider kind of stalking. Still hunting is, some people refer to still hunting in North Carolina as sitting in a tree stand, being still. Other people, especially from northern states, they call still hunting, stalking, slipping through the woods, going very, very slowly, moving from one point to the other, sitting still, watching, listening, paying attention. A deer's sense of smell, their eyesight, especially their hearing on a day like this, is severely diminished because of the rain. So they would rather be up, moving around where they can kind of see as well, so that they can stay safe. Trees that can kind of take some of the brunt of the rain would be a great place to start. Pine thickets, the deer will move through those as well, and they tend to keep a lot of the rain off of them. So if you've got a spot like that you can kind of get out of the rain, consider that as well. But when this rain stops, I mean for any time at all, if it were me, I'd be in the field. I would be on a field edge. If you've got standing bean field, cornfield that's been cut or partially still standing, consider hitting that spot. They are going to feed. When barometric pressure drops, it triggers not only deer, but honestly any wildlife, any fish, anything like that. It's just a fact that weather changes like that, especially with fronts and stuff coming in, it triggers a deer to feed anyway. So they will get on their feet and they'll begin to feed heavily. So hit the field. If you've got rain gear that can keep you mostly dry, and you're not worried about your weapon getting wet until you can get back and clean it and get the moisture off of it so it doesn't rust, get in the field. You're going to see deer. A lot of hunters stay home. And honestly, deer and other wildlife, they learn that this is a good time to be out there because most of the time they're not bothered. So take advantage of that opportunity, get in the woods, and take a chance on killing the biggest deer you've ever killed. Again, some of the biggest deer that I've ever seen in my life have come on days just like this. But I would caution you to be sure of your shot because most of your sign is going to be lost immediately. If it's legal to use tracking dogs and things like that to help find your game, they're going to be limited because of the heavy rain. It's going to wash the scent away. Again, that's not legal everywhere, so be aware of what your game laws are where you're at. But the deer will move in the rain. Heavy rain, in my opinion, most of the heavy rain, you can get lucky like I did that day and have one step out in the heavy downpour. But most of the time, they're going to probably be slipping through places that will kind of, shelter them a little bit through the woods. I've had a lot of success just slipping through the woods and seeing deer like that. But you're going to get wet unless you have some good Gore-Tex rain gear. So invest in that. Even if you have to go to an Army surplus store and get some of the older used military rain gear, it works. I have it. And honestly, it braces you. It'll help cut the wind, and it helps keep the rain off of you for the majority of your hunt. The only thing that's probably going to get wet is your hands, and if you don't have quality foot gear, your feet are probably going to get wet and cold too, unless you've got, again, quality rubber boots and things like that, and that the tops are covered so the rain can't get in. And your weapon, be prepared to clean that, but get in the field and hunt. That's my recommendation. You're going to see deer if you get out there. Are you going to be miserable? Probably, but the deer are miserable in it too, and they just do what they got to do. So take advantage of it. Get out there. Again, you can't kill them on the couch. So thank you guys for tuning in for Collie Outdoors. Hopefully I'm going to have more videos coming soon. We just had a whole lot going on. The reason that I haven't posted anything, had some technical issues as well. So we're having a good season here in North Carolina so far. I have already got meat in the freezer, but that's for another time. So hopefully before going back to work, I'll be able to kill a big one. If this rain slacks off any at all this afternoon, I'm subject to climbing a stand myself. I do not have a box blind that I can get into. And I don't really have a lot of land where I'm still hunting at to take advantage of doing a lot of stalking, but I still may. But again, to each his own, but I do wish you luck. Stay tuned for more videos in the future.